Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra is not only a fantastic photography camera, but it's also a fantastic video camera. And ever since dropping my best settings guide for the S24 Ultra camera, I've had lots of people asking my recommended video settings. So that's what I'm going to share in this video. We're going to do a mixture of deep diving into the settings application, the camera app itself, and of course the different modes and features of the camera app that allow you to take the best footage. Let's first talk about the two main ways to shoot video on this phone, and that is with the standard video mode and also the pro video mode. So the standard is of course what you just get by swiping over from the photo to the video section. Video out of this mode is not going to be the best way of capturing video. This is more akin to speed and getting something which just looks decent out of camera every single time. Samsung still has a habit of over sharpening this footage fairly dramatically, and I just don't really know why they always want to do that with their footage. But like I said, if you want something quick and just want something to work, this is the mode you're going to want to go for. Most importantly, to be honest, there's two sections we're going to want to focus on. It's obviously the lenses that we've got access to here. So these are the zooms. You go right from your ultra wide all the way to the digital 10x, 0.6, 1, 3, and 5x are all optical zooms, and then a 10x is a digital crop of the 5x lens. So to get the absolute best quality in this mode, you're going to want to sit on the 1x and then also the 5x modes. One actual advantage over shooting with this mode over the pro video mode is that you get advantage of the animation between the zooms in video whilst recording. So what I mean by this is you can see here in this clip there's a fluid zoom from the 0.6x to the 1x to the 2x, 3x, etc, etc. You can't actually record like this in the pro video mode. You actually have to stop your recording and change the lens manually, and that can actually be a big disadvantage if you're wanting to shoot like that. So bear this in mind. If you do want fluid zooms between your lenses, you're going to want to stick in the standard video mode. And then the other area over here we're going to want to focus on is there's two modes. So first of all, you have your stabilization settings. This is super steady mode. This is like active mode on the iPhone, so you can turn that on if you are doing something very kind of jiggly, lots of kind of moving around. This is your aspect ratios, not an awful lot to consider. That one I just sit on 16:9, but the one we really want to focus on here is the resolution modes up here. This is where you can change from full HD, HD, UHD, which is actually the mode that I work in most of the time, and 8K. 8K video is of course fantastic on this phone, and it does look really good. I would just say I just don't see any real benefit over shooting UHD on the S24 Ultra. You're going to be getting pretty much just as much detail, unless you are cropping quite dramatically. That I would say is the only real advantage, unless you are specifically shooting that way. And the S24 Ultra has an enormous range of zoom potential, so I don't really know why you're going to be needing to crop that dramatically in the first place. There may well be a time and place to shoot 8K, but for me personally, I just stick in the 4K modes and it's absolutely fine. So like I said, you can very easily change from 8K, shoot in 30 frames a second there, but for me I tend to sit on UHD 30 frames a second, or if I want some additional ability to speed up, to slow down any footage, I will work in 60 frames a second. One additional note is that to improve the quality of your videos, or I would say almost like the professionalism of your videos, you can actually exposure lock just by tapping and holding on a particular scene, and you can see that you get this little icon popping up here. That means your exposure is locked to that value. So if you're in an area and your phone is auto adjusting it, just lock your exposure. It's a phone's habit to kind of expose everything in the scene, and it's not something that professional cameras tend to do in that way. So it's a way to immediately improve the production quality of your videos. So that's the standard video settings, but like I said, that is not the recommended way, in my opinion, to shoot the best quality video out of this camera. That is going to be the pro video mode. So to access this, you just go onto the more section on the right hand side and just tap pro video. Let's go through these settings. Okay, so we're here in the pro video mode now, and you can see here we still get access to our lenses here, but they're all actually labeled slightly differently. I don't know why they've decided to do this, but you've got ultra wide, wide, telephoto, and then super telephoto. Notice that in the pro video section, you no longer have access to that 10x digital crop unless you zoom manually. manually. So that's quite an interesting feature. For the most part, you're going to want to sit in that 1x mode because it is by far the highest quality lens available on the S24 Ultra. We still get these settings in the top right. You can go over to 8K. In the Pro video mode, you get access to 8K 24. There we go. That's a fun fact. Otherwise, it's at 30 frames a second in the standard video mode. I'm going to go to UHD. You can also film in 120 frames a second UHD here, which is a real big advantage. But I'm going to sit on UHD 60 frames a second. That is my preferred frame rate because it just gives me the flexibility to slow anything down if needed. You can see that you can actually scroll this panel here. So we can, up the right to the top, you get options to the zoom. So I'm just not going to touch that because that just allows you to digitally zoom on that. But we're going to sit in my wide mode here. The mic, you get some microphone controls. Again, I'm going to leave that alone on its own for now. White balance, I personally, with a phone, always pretty much leave it automatic. For the most part, these phones are very, very good kind of computing devices now. So I'm going to take advantage of the decent auto white balance on these phones, unless, like I said, if I'm just outside, sometimes I'll set this to 5600. Otherwise, like I said, I will sit it on auto. You don't need to touch your focus here. The controls that we actually are interested in are the shutter speed and the ISO. So I'm shooting in UHD 60 frames a second. So if I am in a controlled environment, I will reduce this shutter speed right down and I will double my frame rate. So you can see I'm on 60 frames a second. I've adjusted to a shutter speed of 1/125, just like that. And then the ISO, I will generally leave to as minimal as possible if that works for the situation that I'm in. Obviously, it's not going to work for the situation I'm in right now, so I'm going to bump that right up to 3200. And this would be the most optimum camera settings for this particular environment that I'm in right now. All right, so we'll get started with standard video. So this is standard video mode, auto exposure, 60 frames a second, slowed down to 42% to fit in this 25 frames a second timeline. So hopefully it's give you a rough idea of the kind of the standard video out of the S24 Ultra. Here is the Pro video mode. So this is, again, same settings, UHD, 60 frames a second, slowed down, but this is manual exposure in the Pro video mode. So I hope this is kind of somewhat conveying what I'm trying to get across here. By shooting in the Pro video mode, it definitely softens the image slightly. And of course, you have significantly more control over the exposure than you do in the standard video mode. It is not as soft as things like the ProRes log on the iPhone 15 Pro line. That for me is still gold standard when it comes to video. And I really, really hope that Samsung or Android allow that to be captured in quite the same way, because the iPhone drastically softens the image. This is softer than the standard video, but it is certainly much sharper than I would ideally like out of this camera. And of course, a consideration is ideally you have control over your lighting situation. If you're outside, doubling your frame rate and exposing manually is a challenge. One of the things you may well have to do is purchase an ND filter for your phone. So you can pick these up online. They're relatively inexpensive. I actually tend to not use these with my phones. I don't really tend to shoot high production video on my smartphone. I have access to bigger cameras if I'm doing something like that. So for me, a smartphone is about getting the best footage or best image possible in the most convenient way possible. So I would suggest, if you are looking and you want the absolute best, always look at getting an ND, because you'll always be able to manage this manual exposure, but you're going to be getting a much more professional, softer image out of the Pro video mode anyway. So I would always recommend shooting in Pro video, even if we're using auto ISO and auto shutter speed. Okay, so with the modes out of the way, let's discuss the advanced video settings. So it's very easy here. All we have to do, you can either do it from the Pro video mode or the normal video mode, but I'm going to head into the settings application just like this. Here are the settings that I've got available to me. So first of all is, of course, you want the video stabilization on, absolutely. The stabilization on Samsung devices is now very, very good. They have a few years of struggling, but it is now good. So I would always absolutely leave this on. This setting at the top, auto frames per second, I would actually turn this off, because you kind of don't want your phone to be messing with your frame rates in lower light situations. I think your frame rate is one thing you should always absolutely have consistent, and you should know kind of what you're filming in. None of the other settings are actually relevant, so we're going to go straight into the advanced video settings, and this is where things become very important. So the first setting at the top here, I always shoot in the high efficiency format because I'm wanting to kind of maximize the amount of data that I can record on this phone. You can shoot in H.264 if you want, but you then lose access to the high bitrate video. So what we're going to do is we're going to prioritize video quality here, and you can see here I can actually shoot in high bitrate video. So this is going to be the highest possible quality that you're able to record on this phone, and this will persist in the pro video mode and the standard video mode. Another thing to note is that especially if you are editing your videos, generally I would turn off HDR 10 plus videos because most of us don't work in environments or editing controls where you're actually going to be able to fully take advantage of this feature. So I'd turn this off for now. It will save you a bit of headache down the line. And then the other thing, this is a value added, but I would like to turn on 360 audio recording as well. And there we have it. Your Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra is set up to record the best videos possible. There we go, guys. I hope you have found this interesting and helpful. If anyone else has any top tips on shooting the best quality video on their Samsung device, drop it in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys next time.